is Safe Space with Shay. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Today, we are going to be talking about Gen X, okay? This is a generation that has often been forgotten, and today we want to put a special spotlight on this generation. Today, I have Laverne Santangelo. She is a licensed professional counselor. She is also a registered yoga teacher, and she is a veteran of the Army National Guard. Welcome, Laverne.
Thank you, Shay. I'm so honored to be here and feel good about being here today. Thank you. And that you want to talk about Generation X.
Yeah.
Gen X. Yeah, because we are kind of forgotten. We really are.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And so before we dive into that, tell me about how you started your practice.
Oh, boy. You know what? I'll go way back to where all this came from. You know, almost 15 years ago, because I've been retired from the military for 15 years. I really have. And I was part-time. I was a stay-at-home mom. You know, I'd experienced just a lot, go through a lot of transitions in my life. You will find as I approach this next milestone birthday,
Yeah.
had just experienced a lot during that time. And had 18 months before I retired, went through a very rough period of loss. Didn't know what to call it, what to name it, didn't know to call it depression, anxiety, grief, didn't know any of that. I went for counseling, and then I started going into some other spaces for healing. And lo and behold, I was like, what am I going to do after retirement? And my sons were getting ready to graduate high school. I was getting ready to become empty nest. And I decided to go into the mental health field because I saw that there was definitely a need within our community for more women, of color that look like us, providing mental health services. And then it just has kind of just snowballed. I've worked in addictions. I've worked case management for a lot of years. I got my master's in mental health counseling. And I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur, always. That's just been with me. Mm-hmm. And 5 years ago, coming up on 6 now, I decided to leave my full-time job and say, I'm going private practice, and here I am. So, yeah, that is how I got. That's the short story.
Yeah,
that's the short version.
And I love that, too, because it sounds like you took a period in your life of loss and you created a new chapter, a new beginning for yourself.
I sure did. And you know what? Unconsciously, because I'm telling you, I really did not know what to name it back then. I did not have the words or what I was feeling and experiencing 15 years ago. I did not have that.
Yeah.
Didn't have the vocabulary for it.
God. Well, I thank you so much for all the work you've done.
Thank you.
Are doing.
You're welcome.
Yes. So, Laverne, tell me about your grief practice and how you support your clients.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you, like I said, I feel like I've come full circle. I had this really big epiphany last weekend that I had come really full circle. And my grief, when I went into private practice, I can tell you grief was not like my niche, but that's what was really showing up in my practice. And I had just started practicing yoga a couple of years before. And I know how much yoga had helped me with anxiety and depression and just, really getting centered, helped me with my spiritual life and, just was helping me to just move better through the day, along with the physical parts, which is, the flexibility and, keeping the right energy and everything, keeping enough energy during the workday. And so because it was so beneficial for me, I'm like, well, I wonder what yoga postures are available for my grief clients that were really struggling with grief. And I got to tell you that I was getting a lot of grief clients, and I started my practice during the pandemic, but the clients that I was seeing, it wasn't that they were coming in because they lost clients to COVID. Okay. I don't know. I'm trying to connect the dots and make sense. But, grief, we experience grief every day.
Yeah.
but it wasn't just grief of the loss of someone. It was grief in other areas of their lives, okay, such as job loss.
Yep.
There was, as we know, there was a lot of fighting going on about COVID within families, and families were starting to break apart, and there was starting to be a lot of estrangement and things like that. And so there was those conversations that were going on that were surrounded by grief. We was also experiencing the Black Lives Matter. And so, with George Floyd, people were feeling that. So there was a lot of, and with COVID, collective grief.
Ooh,
Okay. And so I kind of felt, that's how I kind of fell into it.
Yeah.
Kind of started to bring up, the grief that I was experiencing. And so again, with yoga, I started doing the research. And I started talking to my clients about practicing yoga and doing various postures and things, because I was like, what are the postures that are there that can help us move through the feelings and emotions that come with grief? And so that's kind of how I started integrating yoga into my practice. And then the next thing you know, I had kind of fallen down this rabbit hole of, information out here on social media and saw a grief yoga certification class. And I was like, I think I need to add that to my practice. And so I did the certification, one of the best trainings I'd had, and just started offering grief yoga classes because I felt my clients that they were benefiting from the postures and the breath work and the movement. Let me start to offer it to the community. And so I just kind of started offering the grief yoga classes. And people can find me to find out about the grief yoga classes through my website, LaverneSantangelo.com.
Okay.
I offer classes monthly, around the city. Some are free, and some are paid. And it's just a wonderful way to move the feelings and emotions of grief through your body, because we carry so much. There's a book, Vessel Vandencourt. I hope I said his name right. The body keeps the score.
Yes.
And it really does.
Yes.
It does. And so if you're feeling heavy, there's a lot of emotions, feelings, and that stuff weighs us down.
Yes.
Grief yoga, any type of yoga is a great way to move those feelings out. And so I have this holiday season, I have a couple of holiday grief yogas.
Okay.
That are coming up. I have one coming up on Monday in Pontiac.
Okay.
If you want more information, I have a Facebook page, Laverne Santangelo Therapy.
Perfect.
And then also, again, I have another grief yoga that's going to be coming up in Detroit over at Faith Gardens over on the east side.
Okay.
In Detroit. And so you can find out, again, Laverne Santangelo Therapy. That's my Facebook page. And so, so that's how I kind of incorporated yoga into it, and kind of how, and my specialty being grief, depression, anxiety, but I'm very passionate about that grief yoga piece, and just, help people using that to help find some relief, liberation, and empowerment.
I love that. I love that, because oftentimes we don't talk about how our body holds so much emotion, stress, and trauma. And so I'm so glad that you have a space where you can support women.
Absolutely. And, one of the things I will always hear, people will say they feel lighter after a grief yoga class. And I can really sense it in the room too, because I will pay attention to how people come in, and you can just see it, and by the end of a 45-minute, 50-minute, 60-minute class, I can see a big difference overall. So
I love
it's been a blessing.
Awesome. So 2 questions. You do offer it outside of the holiday season, right? It's throughout the year.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to emphasize that the sessions that are coming up. So those are specifically, I kind of gear those because the holiday season, it can be a very difficult time.
Absolutely.
And it does not matter whether your loss was last year, 2 years ago, last month. We grieve. If we love, we're going to grieve.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's not specific to the loss of a loved one.
Yes.
There's grief in divorce. There's grief in empty nest.
Yeah.
Maybe you've just moved here.
Yeah.
okay, and you're missing your family right from afar, and you can't get home for the holiday season. And so these are all various transitions, retirement, all those things. So those are all various transitions that we experience. And so the holiday season, again, can be a very difficult time, right? It brings up the, especially maybe you don't have anyone, to share, all the cheer that comes along with it.
I was going to bring that up too. A lot of Gen Xers have this estrangement with their children.
Yes, yep,
And
exactly.
so-
And there's grief. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you are welcome to attend. It is not just about the loss of a loved one. Yeah, if there's estrangement, yes, that's a place for you. The grief yoga class is a place where you can come and release some of that and be in community.
Yes.
We really do. There's something to be said about healing in community, being in community, in the healing process.
Yeah.
And so I definitely will make it safe for you.
Yeah.
You get on that mat and, really try to provide you some privacy as you move through, as I lead you through the flow.
I love that. And there's a quote that I always love. It says, "We heal in community, not in isolation."
Yeah, that is, that is it. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the big time of year where people will isolate.
Yes.
Yeah. From now until they say about January 15th, this is high, a time where people will really isolate. It's a high suicide rate during this time. And so it's important checking in on your loved ones, checking in on yourself.
Yes.
Okay. Checking in on yourself. And, a grief yoga class is, they are available. So November 17th, November 24th. I also have a class coming up December 13th. Those are all upcoming classes that I will be teaching grief yoga.
Awesome. Thank you. So we're going to start with my first question. What were some major contributing factors, socially, economically, and familial, that impact Gen X in our community?
Ooh. So, I was talking to my husband about some of these questions, and it really, really forced me to look closer at my generation and some of the things that we experienced. Now, some of these I didn't experience myself because my mom was home, pretty much, and my dad was retired and everything when they were raising me. But I do know from my husband and from my friends, a lot of the friends that I had, a lot of them were, latchkey, their moms, both parents were working out of the homes. They were coming home to empty houses. And, we became independent pretty soon, sooner than 18, a lot of us. There wasn't a lot of talk about emotions, feelings. Remember I was saying that, right? Yes. I didn't have the words to put with that, okay? Because we were still part of that generation. What goes on in this house, you stay in this house. What's wrong with you? You keep going. You keep grinding no matter what. During that time, also with Gen X, I think we started to experience more, I guess maybe you could say secondary trauma. We might not have been completely involved in it, but we saw a lot more violence, the crack epidemic, mass incarceration. And then there was this rapid social change for us that started with Gen X, which was like media, technology, and a lot of cultural shifts without, and my therapist without emotional guidance. Ooh. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was a lot of what Gen X experienced. Oh my God. Yeah, as we were being raised.
And I think about it too, even the Gen Xers I know, they have this exterior of, I got to push through, I got to move.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, like they have no soft place to land.
Right.
And it's like, I just want to hug them.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Shay, there is an influencer I follow, and it's really interesting because his whole platform is about showing how the different generations, and he starts with boomers. Yep. He does boomers. Maybe you've seen him. He does boomers, Gen X, millennials, and then Gen Z,
Yes.
right? How we respond in work situations. And it's just different across it's so different across the generations, and it's interesting.
It really is,
Yeah.
because when I was on my audio podcast, I had a psychologist on, and we talked about the baby boomer generation. I had another therapist on. We talked about Gen Z. I'm a millennial, so I think that's important too for us to cultivate healthier relationships, to understand what actually impacted us.
Absolutely,
Right? It gives us
absolutely.
a firmer foundation of establishing that healthy connection.
Right, right, and it helps us work. It does help us work together,
Yes,
right? Because we're
absolutely.
all there.
Yeah.
There is such a mix.
Yeah.
When I look at the job that I left, there was boomers still there. Yeah, boomers, all of us right there. Gen X,
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
God. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the next question: how did those factors shape the perception of Gen X?
Ooh. I'm going to say we are very self-sufficient. I when I look at my my sons, who are, I guess they would be early millennials, because they are 30, 33.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, those are early,
Yeah.
your early millennials, right? And so I think we're a lot more self-reliant. We are those ones, we really push to figure it out. I think we tend to not ask for help a lot. I see that we're private.
Yes.
I think a lot more, we're really private. I think many of us, because of that being raised, of that, in the military, we would say, suck it up, drive on. But you keep going. But because we weren't, I think, allowed to really talk about a lot of our feelings, express our thoughts, not allowed to cry, not allowed. I think a lot of us, in a lot of ways, especially mentally, I think we suffer a little bit in silence. We are fixers, problem solvers, crisis managers. I mean, we tend to just have to do it all, feel like we have to do it all, and like we don't know how to say no at times. I come across that a lot. We are sandwiched in the middle of the boomers and the millennials, right? And it's like, I think some of us, even though, we have a lot of famous, Gen X that are out there and stuff, but, when I think you look at, like, as far as what boomers have contributed, millennials, here we are, Gen X, sandwiched in the middle. I think at times we find it hard to really, like, what have we really, really contributed? I mean, we've contributed a lot, I do believe, but I think we struggle with really embracing that, and it does look a little different compared to what boomers and what millennials are doing now. We're stuck right there in the middle.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you said that too, because there are some positive attributes to Gen X and what they bring to society, to the culture as a whole. And I think that needs to be talked about as well. Identifying your strength. I think you just, highlighted some of those, and some of those weaknesses, or I would say some of those needs, right?
Right, absolutely.
To know, okay, what do I need from others so that I can receive that?
Absolutely.
And it's safe enough to do that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very true.
Yes,
True.
yes. Okay. So my next question, what needs were missed, which we just talked about, kind of, sort of, what needs were missed, neglected, and how can Gen X lean more into showing up for themselves?
I think there's a lot of needs that were missed. I think, seriously, I think there's a lot. And I think we need to, again, I think because I would say we need to learn to really set some boundaries for ourselves, to help us pay more attention to our health, pay more attention to our finances, have more have more peace in our lives. And I think we need to be okay with that and not feel so guilty and really not feel like we have to do everything. Everything. I think that's a huge thing with Gen X. And Gen X is working Gen X is working a lot longer too, than boomers. So boomers, I think boomers that are working, there are, and I don't want to generalize because you know what, there is that group of boomers that, they have to work for financial reasons. However, boomers are still part of that generation where they have more of the opportunity, to be able to retire, financially, where I think Gen X we went through the recession back in 2008, right? And a lot of us Gen X, we lost everything, and so many of us, our generation, and it was really interesting because my father-in-law used to say this a lot, him being boomer, very, early boomer, that I don't know if your generation is ever going to be able to retire, really, really, truly retire like they, like he was able to do. And Gen X really, in terms of finances, are, struggling to hit that retirement. And if we're going to hit that, that does mean that we need to really set some boundaries, taking more time to focus on our health, redesigning maybe how we work, how we develop, how we generate income that's coming in. Maybe if we have to stay out there in the workforce, maybe we're going to reinvent ourselves, which is what I consider, which is what I did. Maybe we're going to reinvent ourselves, and so that we can stay, out in the workforce and sustain ourselves financially a little bit more. But it's going to take change, and we need to get therapy, right? We need to get a life coach if we need it. We need to surround ourselves, especially as Black women, we need to surround ourselves with sisters that are doing the same things that we're doing and going the same direction that we want to go in terms of our health and our mental health, because those are the top two things that are going to dictate, our longevity here.
Absolutely. That's so good. And I've realized a lot of the things, well, not a lot, but one emotion that comes up is guilt or shame.
Absolutely.
What does that mean? Like, I think people need to understand that there's a reason behind that. It's not just for you to feel like embarrassed or just shameful. That is telling you something.
Yeah.
What is guilt and shame? What is that saying?
So, guilt, obviously, what I say in terms of like guilt, looking at the situation, and really saying to yourself, okay, what did I do? Those are legitimate. Those are legitimate feelings, right? Guilt and shame, legitimate feelings and emotions. And I think it's a pause for you to kind of just step back and say, okay, well, wait a minute. What am I feeling guilty about? Really examining, did you do guilt it's important you have, that you have those, right? Because it makes you stop and think and take a look at a situation and examine and go, okay, did I do something? What did I do? It's that, to kind of stop, pause, and really examine that situation and say, what did I do? And shame, okay, that feeling that you have, afterwards, should I, those are normal responses, but they're not the responses that they can hold us back, keep us down.
Yes.
Right? And so we want to look at that guilt. We want to look at that shame and force and examine and say, if we're feeling those things, let me go talk to somebody about that. Sometimes the situations aren't, they're not, we see it through that one lens, right? But we go and talk to a therapist, and that therapist can kind of help us step outside of that and point out to you normal reactions, but let's look like if they're actually warranted. Yeah. Okay? Yeah. They can hold you back.
Absolutely.
Hold you back in many different ways. Absolutely. So I hope that make sense.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Okay.
And one of the things I wanted to put emphasis on too, we often say we are guilty or we are, ashamed, but you're feeling that way, and you have to create that separation.
Right.
This
exactly.
is a feeling that I'm feeling. I'm feeling guilty in this moment. I'm feeling ashamed in this moment. So you don't attach to that and make it your identity.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
Think there are things that can hold us back, but you can work through that.
Absolutely.
Right? And release it.
Yeah.
To move forward.
And it's so important. I do like what you said, getting with a therapist so that they can ask those curious or engaging questions, because, oftentimes I think Gen X just automatically assumes blame and responsibility.
We do, yeah.
And that's, yeah.
But that was the position.
Yeah.
Listen, a lot of us Gen X, because we were latchkey kids, or because we became adults sooner. We were looking after the little ones, the younger siblings, we became responsible, right?
Yeah.
Sooner than I would say, than what the millennials, a lot of millennials, they, very much, because of Gen X was left alone, as Gen X parents, right? So, we could tend to at times over supervise, right? Because we were left alone, right?
Absolutely.
And so we, could tend to, maybe be a little too involved at times, right? And then they don't get that the independence that we had in the beginning. And so, like I said, we take the blame for a lot because we were, I think, adulting way sooner than millennials are.
Absolutely. So it's time for Gen X. Take that shift, balance that scale.
Right.
Yes. Okay. So is there anything else you wanted to add to this conversation?
No, I would say, there's a lot of resources, groups that are being created now by Gen X. We have, it's not too late for us to get out there, and create something new. Take the social media classes, take advantage of the many platforms that are out there for us. They might say that we are forgotten, but we are still very, very relevant, though, too. Remember, we have the wisdom now. We have all the wisdom, and millennials and Gen Z, they need our wisdom. They do. So don't be afraid to take that leap into what's next for you. It's needed. These platforms, YouTube. I'm not into TikTok, but if you're into that, Facebook, Instagram, all of them, I constantly hear that there's a need for Gen X, for us to come on and share our wisdom, share our knowledge, and teach the generations that are behind us. We are very much needed. I have a Facebook group called SAS, and it's called the Second Act Sisterhood Society. And we are a group of women. We get together in the group, we meditate together, we encourage each other in our second acts. Yeah, and there are some boomers that are in there. Most of us are 50 and up. And so it's not too late. We're doing some fabulous things that are out there. And that's kind of what's happening. Yeah.
And did you bring something you want to share?
I did. Actually, as a second act. And again, I'm all about it not being too late and encouraging women. And through my, I am keeping up with you, millennials. Okay.
I love it. I'm here for
it. As I said, I have a Facebook, and a lot of us can. And I've written a few books for our second act sisters that are out there. Boldly Over 50 is a book that I've written myself, and there's another author that's in here from Detroit. This talks about being boldly beyond 50, something for us Gen X. Okay, and this is 17 Black women who came together across the nation, and we all contributed a chapter, what it's like to be over 50 and what we're doing now. There are some phenomenal women that are here. And so find us on Facebook. You can get that book through me. I've also, from my therapist perspective, I've written a book on journey through grief. This is a 90-day guided journal, yoga, meditation, prayer, scripture, breath work. That's taking care of ourselves. You hear me? I'm saying we got to take care of ourselves for longevity. And then for those of us who really, really need to just sit down and do some work, my over 50 self-care journal, It's Time to Slay Me for a Change, which is about setting the boundaries, taking care of ourselves, 30 days of just doing what you need to do to get that self-care in place. Yeah. And so this is my second act. I asked the question, what's yours, to my Gen X? We're still very relevant.
Yes, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Message.
Thank you.
Yes,
Shay, I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. So we are going to conclude, but as always, I want you to know that you are worthy, you are deserving, and please take time to honor yourself. Until next time, bye.
Bye.